Hi there. In this course, we're going to make this fold over messenger bag, and I wanted to show it to you in detail and explain a few things before you got started with it. And I'm here in my studio because I literally just finished making this version, which you'll be seeing me put together in the tutorial. So let me show you a few things about it and some things you can think about before you get started on yours. I wanted to share a few details before you got started on your fold over messenger bag. So essentially this bag is literally a large zipper pouch. So imagine like a makeup case, but a larger one. And it folds over, which is really nice and makes it super comfy over your shoulder because it has this really wide strap that you're going to be making that sits crossbody. Anyway, it's a lot of fun when you pick out your zipper because there's so many different types of zippers today on the market. So I suggest you use either like a metal one like I did or a plastic molded one like this. And like I said, it's a lot of fun when you're choosing if you don't have your zipper already, because you'll notice that they sell really cool zippers with interesting pulls. This one happens to be vintage, but if you could find it, I think it's a great one for this very bag here. Of course, you could use the nylon ones, but I do suggest a heavier zipper like I used, because I suggest to you to use a upholstery fabric. So a fabric that really is used for covering chairs, sofas, and that is a bit thicker and stronger. Of course, you can use whatever fabric you'd like. So I do add these details here of the flowers, but of course they are optional, and I do tell you that in the tutorial. Don't feel like you have to add your flowers. I just love the look that it gives to this really simple bag. It's just like a pop of, hey, I didn't expect that. That is so neat. So I show you how to make them, and these are hand sewn together and hand sewn on. And I also suggest you find vintage buttons. Of course, you could use any button, especially buttons that don't even resemble really a button. You know what I mean, like the 4 holes or the 2 holes in a button. But of course, whatever it is that you have, even broken jewelry pieces work really, really well for the center of these flowers. Anyhow, this is a pretty cute, well, I don't want to say cute. It's a pretty cool bag, and I find it really comfortable when it sits over my shoulder, and I can put my laptop in there, books, binders, whatever it is that I need, and it just is functional and gorgeous, if I don't say so myself. Anyway, get that pattern downloaded, tape it together, and let's start making. Let's make this fold over messenger bag. So as you can see here, I'm putting together the pattern. And in case you didn't read the pattern info, I just wanted to go over this super fast. And that once you print out, you'll have 9 pattern pages or 9 sheets. And they literally go 1, 2, 3, tape them together. Don't cut anything. And then 4, 5, 6. And then a third row, 7, 8, 9. And that's all it is. It's 9 squares or sheets taped together. So if you didn't remove your white margins, it's totally fine. Don't cut anything. Just tape the sheets side to side, just like this, without cutting, just like I have here. All right, and a few things got cut out, so I just filled it in because I didn't remove my margins, like the R's missing, but it's totally fine. You don't even need that. So tape it together and then cut along your black solid lines and have your pieces ready. Quick reminder, when you're cutting out your paper pattern, to use your shears or scissors that you don't use for fabric. So just your regular shears or your regular scissors. The shears that you use for fabrics are supposed to be only for fabrics, so they stay nice and sharp and cut your fabrics much cleaner. So my pattern pieces are cut out, and just to quickly review, you're going to need pattern piece number 1, the bag body, pattern piece number 2, the strap, pattern piece 3, the loop, and then for the flowers, which is also optional, you may not want them, or you may, you'll need pattern piece number 4, 5, and 6, and these are for the petals: large petal, medium petal, and small petal. And let's get started. Fabrics that I'm going to use to make my messenger bag. So this is like a really nice soft twill, and I'm going to use this for the exterior and for the handle. And then the interior is going to be this lightweight cotton. It's a really good idea to use a fabric for the exterior that's a little bit stiffer, especially in upholstery. But of course, it's totally up to you what you choose. So this is for my exterior, and then for my flowers, I figured I'd keep it really earth tone and neutral. I chose these three colors as well. So let's start cutting out the body of the bag. To cut out my interior of the messenger bag, and you have to cut out a total of 4. So you're going to cut 2 interiors and 2 exteriors. So I decided to start with this one, and I just want to quickly review that the grain line runs along the same edge as the selvage edge, the edge that does not fray. So you're going to pin it down or use weights, whatever you prefer, and you'll cut it out. And just to also mention, it is folded right sides together. So also, as I start cutting that out, I just wanted to mention about the strap. So when you do your strap, you're going to have to consider first, do you want it to look like the exterior of your bag, or do you want it to be like the interior or something completely different? So just to show you on this interior fabric, here's my fold because my fabric is folded, and you have to place your strap down on the folds. So you're going to match where it says fold line against the fold. You'll pin it down or use your pattern weights, and you'll cut it out that way. So you open it up and it's double the length once it's cut out. I'm definitely going to make mine like the exterior of my bag. So I'm going to push this aside and focus on the interior, which is sort of like this. I'm not even sure what kind of color this is. It's kind of like a really light olive. Okay, once I have this straightened up, I just work on cutting. Remember to close your shears all the way down as you're cutting, because you get even and straighter cuts. This is my interior bag, so now I'm going to cut out the exterior. My strap, I'm going to bring the fold line down to where my fabric is folded, right sides together. So bring it down to that edge, and I'll use my pattern weights and cut it out. For the loop, I'm going to use scraps to actually cut this out, and it's the same cutting method. What I wanted to go over with you was how to cut out your petals if you decide to add the flowers to your fold over messenger bag. So for my flowers, I chose these fabrics here, and I decided that I wanted the larger petal or the larger flower, this particular fabric. So what you have to do, it's sort of the same exact way as cutting out the strap, is you're going to cut this on a fold because you want to have a circle. So I gave you a half a circle instead of a full circle, just for the sake of taping and cutting it out and having it fit on less pages for you to print out. So you're going to pin right here, and since this is a smaller pattern piece, I do like to use my pins. You're going to pin down, and you're going to cut right out. Now, I created these flowers with 5 petals, but of course you can make more. You can add more than 3 flowers, because I'm giving you a large flower, a medium, and a small flower, but this is totally up to you. You can change it up. You could add more, you could add less, you could add 1, whatever you want. So cutting out 1 works just like this, where once you cut out, you do get a full circle. And let me show you what I mean by that. Since I'm lefty, I feel like I struggle, so I always change my cutting direction. So as you can see here, you cut out this half circle. You could clean this up before you cut, or I meant to say, remove the pins, and you now have your circle. So 1 circle makes 1 petal, and the flowers have 5 petals. So you'll have to cut out 5 for each flower. My cutout pieces ready for the bag. So just to review, 2 exterior bag pieces and 2 interior pieces. Then I have my 2 loops, my strap. This is folded in half actually. And then I have all of my 15 petals for my 3 flowers, my small, medium, and my large. So 5 petals of each. And then I have my 20-inch zipper. This zipper is about an inch or two too long, but if you have that issue, don't worry. I'll show you how to fix that as we're working and sewing. So remember, it's a non-separating zipper. Step is to take one of your exterior bag pieces and you're going to place it down right side up. And then along the top here, you're going to take your non-separating zipper and you're going to place it right side down. So basically the right side of the zipper and the right side of the fabric are touching. And you're going to line it up with the edge. Now I told you you needed a 20-inch zipper. Mine is a few inches longer, but you could still work with that if you may have that issue for whatever reason. I'll show you as I'm sewing how we can get around that. And you're going to line it up towards the top, and then you're going to take one of your interior bag pieces and you're going to face it right sides down. Okay, so right side down, and you're going to line this up to the best of your ability and you're going to pin it. Now for whenever I'm doing zippers, larger zippers like this, I do like to use my fabric clips. I find that it's a bit easier for me. So I'm going to use my fabric clips and get in there and pin this all together. And I'm going to make sure that I line up the zipper with both fabrics. You don't want one of the fabrics a bit lower or higher than the other. Next step is to sew a straight stitch all the way down along, back stitching on the ends. And you're going to make sure that your sewing machine has its zipper foot on it if you have a zipper foot. If not, no worries, sew with your regular foot. I have my zipper foot in place and I've made sure that my fabrics, my interior and exterior, and the zipper line up. I put my machine to a 2 stitch or 2.5 size stitch, and now I am going to bring down the zipper foot. And as you can see here, if you've never worked with the zipper foot, the edge of this foot lines up with the zipper so you don't have any issues. And I'm going to sew. I tend to go slow when I do zippers because slower is better. And I move my clips out of the way. And as I go, I do a double check just to make sure all 3 pieces are together: interior, zipper, and exterior. Do not forget to backstitch on the ends. Now that this has been sewn together, what it looks like when you turn it right side out is this. Okay, so when you lay it out, you'll see this will be the exterior and this will be the interior. But before we sew on the other side, what I want you to do is I just want you to give it a quick press to bring this all down. All right, so it doesn't get in the way when you're sewing on your other edge. So being careful with your zipper in place, I'm gonna pull it and then press down with my iron. Now that I have it set at the correct temperature. And this will make it much cleaner and keep it in place as we add the other side on. Take your other piece of the exterior of your bag, lay it down right sides up, and you're going to take what you just sewed together here and you're going to lay it down right sides together. Okay, just the same exact way, and we're going to sort of form what I like to call a sandwich, because this is a bread, this is your meat or whatever you put on the inside, and then your other bread is going to be your other interior piece, and you form a sandwich. So this is right sides down. And just like before, I'm going to flip this around. I'm going to make sure that I line this all up so it meets. All the way up here, all three pieces meet. Three pieces meaning the interior of the bag, the zipper, and the exterior. And I'm going to use my pins again. What am I saying? I mean my clips, and I'm going to clip it in place. And the same exact way I sewed the other side of the zipper, I'm going to repeat that process for this side. Okay, you're going to backstitch on the end, and then you'll move along. I'm always checking that all three pieces are together before I sew. And it's okay to adjust like I am, because this particular fabric of mine is not as stiff as the cotton, so it does move. I'm going to backstitch on the end. We're good. Press this side just as we did the opposite side. I'm going to give this side another press as well, because now the next step is we are going to sew a top stitch from the beginning here all the way down. You do not need to back stitch, and you're going to repeat the process on this side as well. Just a top stitch about 1/4 of an inch away from the zipper. What this does is it lets the zipper lie flat and not have the fabric get in the way when you're zipping and unzipping. So here's my other sample that's already done, and as you can see, this top stitching here keeps the fabric flat and doesn't get in the way when you're open and closing. I've changed my presser foot back to the original and am using that. So when I bring my foot down, I'm lining up the edge of my foot to the edge of this fabric here, and it works out perfectly. Remember, you don't need to back stitch. I like to keep the fabric a bit taut as I'm doing this, so there's no folds under here. With the top stitch in place, it just looks so much cleaner and smoother and just awesome. We are getting there. So the next step is we're going to take our loop pieces and we are going to fold them right sides together. And you are going to sew down the open edge, back stitching on the ends. You're going to do the same thing for both, and then you're going to turn them right side out. Turn this one right side out, and I'll show you how to do one in case you're having trouble. So I like to use a safety pin, and I pin it to the edge, and then I push that pin inside, and I sort of walk it through or guide it through as I'm pulling the edge of the loop. So depending on which fabric you have, like especially if you worked with something like a velvet, you may find that it's a little bit more challenging, but these softer cottons like this isn't so bad. So as you can see here, it came out. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to iron these flat. I pressed my loops with the seam on one side in the center of one side. So this side is smooth and this side has the seam in the center. And I'm thinking I'm going to put a running stitch along the top and the bottom of this to make my loop a bit more firmer, and so that this doesn't move around, so the seam stays in the center. So if you look on my other example that I made, I actually left the seam on the edge. So it's totally up to you, whatever look you like, you go for that. Here's what my loops look like now that I've added the stitching on the top and the bottom. So I'm going to give them one last press and moving on to the next. What we do now is you're going to take your bag and you're going to open it up and you're going to bring your exterior pieces and you're going to bring them right sides together. So here's what I mean. This is right side with this right side. Of course, they're sewn already sort of in place, so there's no guesswork here. And you are going to pin these together. Okay, but before you do that, what you want to do is you want to open up your zipper, maybe about halfway. Because if you don't open it, it's going to be nearly impossible or challenging, whichever one you choose, to actually turn this bag right side out. So you're going to bring this exterior end. Seriously, was that a fly? It was a fly. And you are going to pin it all together. You can use your clips if you want to do that instead. And you're just going to pin these edges together. Okay, so for the exterior, this is where we are going to apply our loops. So as you're pinning, you're also going to put your loops. So let me show you how to do that. So this is my loop here that I just showed you before, and I'm going to take this loop and I am going to turn it with the seam side on the inside and fold it this way. And I'm going to place it in between here. So again, I am sandwiching them in between here at about 14 inches. So with my tape measure, I measure where 14 inches is. So you can go lower, you could go higher, but that gives you a bigger flap that folds over. So if you go lower, bring your loops lower, you can create a bag that's equally cut in half that way as it folds. It's up to you. I like mine with my flap kind of large, but not too large. So I'm going to leave it at 14. I'm going to open this up, slide it right in there. Make sure it's not folded or bent. And I'm going to let them stick out just a little. By letting them stick out a little, I know I've totally locked them in as I'm sewing. And then I'm going to pin it in place. I'll add two just for security so they don't move. And I'm going to do the same exact thing on the other side. I'm going to fold it in half with the seam on the inside. Measure where 14 is. And then slip it right in there. So you're basically putting it in this way with the ends, matching the ends inside the two exteriors. Letting the ends stick out a little ensures that as you're sewing, you caught all edges. And then we trim it when we're done with it. All right, so continue pinning your exterior. And then you're going to do the same exact thing with the interior. Okay. So my fabric was definitely a little bit challenging to work with. Just a touch, because it does move around, which is never welcome when you're sewing. So what I'm going to do here, see, this is where my opening is. I'm going to take this, match it. And I'm going to place a clip in it. This way it will help me so it doesn't move as I'm sewing. And I'm going to continue sewing. I mean pinning. All right, here we go. And now I'm going to pin the same exact way over here. See, this fabric looks like I cut it off, but this one threw me off because it was, you know, one of those fabrics that you think has actually shifted in size, but it hasn't as you're sewing. All right, so let's continue. Now that I am all pinned together, my exterior is pinned and so is my interior. You are going to make a marking, which I already have gone ahead and done, a little bit wider than your hand. So I'm actually going to remark my area there a little bit wider than your hand, because this is going to be the area that we use to turn the bag right side out. Okay, and as you have guessed, you're going to start sewing from whichever marking you want. So if you start from here, you're going to sew down, pivot, make sure you do a really good back stitch there, because it's going to take, we're going to add a lot of pressure there as we're turning right side out. So again, as I interrupt myself, you're going to sew, make a turn, come all the way up and over this zipper. And if your needle, sewing needle, hits the zipper, whether it's plastic, nylon, or metal, it most likely will break. So as you get up to this part, actually don't use the foot pedal of your machine, use the wheel and turn over it and skip this metal or plastic area. Just skip right over and then continue sewing so that you don't break your needle. And then you're going to make your way all the way around, up, again, until you meet this other marking. Okay, and make sure you do a really good back stitch on these two opening marks. And now I'm sewing using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. I'm getting up to the zipper, and I'm going to use, just like I told you, the hand wheel, and wherever I feel that the plastic zipper is, like I feel it right there, I'm actually going to lift the foot and just pass it a little, just a touch over, pull it, and then I feel, and I have passed the zipper, and I'll continue. I've completed my sewing, the next step is you are going to trim your corners. So you're going to literally just take the corner off, but make sure you don't cut the seam on all four. And then after you trim your corners, what you're going to do is you're going to get your shears or your scissors that you use for paper, or basically not your fabric shears, and you're going to trim here your zipper. Okay, you're going to just cut it right off, because you want to take off that bulk, because when you turn it right side out, it will create too much of a bulk if you don't trim it. And this one here as well, well, if you have 20 inches, probably will not have this extra area here. But I did not have one. I had it a bit longer, so I have that issue. And now the fun part is you're going to turn it right side out through this opening you left. So what I like to do is like to get my hand in there, and I go through the opening of the zipper, and I grab the bottom end, and I pull right through. And we are going to make sure that we turn it all right side out first. So here's my exterior. Such a nice fabric for a messenger bag. I'm going to poke out my corners using my finger. If you didn't trim your corners, you wouldn't have such square corners. So make sure those are all poked out. And here are my loops that are sticking out exactly the way they're supposed to. I'm going to unzip and stretch it all out. And before I go ahead and finish this off, what I want you to do is I want you to make sure that all your edges are intact. So they're all sewn together and you're good. So what you're going to do here is, what we're going to do is we're going to poke out these corners, and you can use your chopstick like we have before. Or actually, I haven't used my chopstick yet for this tutorial. Usually I like to use my chopsticks in my corners, or if your scissor ends are blunt like this and not sharp, you can actually use that to poke out your corners. All right. And then you're going to simply turn over these edges and just do a quick running stitch. You don't have to do a blind stitch where it doesn't show, because this is going to be at the very end of your messenger bag and really you're not going to see it. So I'm going to bring this right over to my sewing machine. You can press it if you'd like. And I am going to just put a running stitch straight across, and I'm not going to even change the color of my thread. My opening closed, I'm going to push this interior into the bag, which is essentially a large pouch or zippered pouch. All right, getting this right into the corner, and this is where I'm going to make sure I match my corners. So literally pushing one corner right into the other. And I put my hands in there and I do my stretching, and the bag is almost complete. You're going to give it a little shake, and you'll see that when you pull or the straps pull, this is where your flap will be flapping over. All right, and in the corners here, make sure you push these out. And there's my top. That got a little stuck there. So there's my top. All right, now we are going to make the strap. So get your strap piece out, and right sides together, we're going to fold it down, and we are going to sew all the way from one end straight down to the other 1/4 inch seam, and we're going to back stitch on the ends. Then you're going to turn it right side out. It's sewn and turned right side out, and this time I'm going to press the seam out to one end here, and I'm going to press it. So I'm going to make sure it's pressed out to the furthest point and give it a good press. And on the ends of the strap, what I'm going to do is fold it over just a touch, maybe about 1/2 inch, and I'm going to press. So this way you have a nice clean end strap. So that's one end, and I'll do the same to this end. So to finish off the strap, what I'm going to do is sew all around about 1/4 inch from the edge until I enclose it all, just giving it a top stitch. Now the completed strap is going to loop through the loop, and we're going to feed it through, and we're going to fold it over about 2.5 inches. So you can measure that. You don't want to take away too much, because then you'll take away the length of the strap, which is not adjustable. Right about 2.5 inches, just lower it a bit. And I am going to add 2 pins. And you're going to do the same thing to the other side, but as you do that, make sure you don't twist your strap. meaning hold it straight, like don't twist it and go over, okay? So I'm holding it straight this way, and it is moving right over to this side. I'm going to bend it over again 2.5 inches. Make sure it doesn't scrunch when you do your folding. It'll scrunch after naturally. 2.5 inches. There we go, tad more. And I am going to sew up here to keep it in place, and I'm going to do about 3 sewing lines. So here's what I mean by that. I'm going to go forward once. I'm going to follow this line here. I'm going to sew, and then I'm going to back stitch all the way back and again, just to ensure that I have a really tight hold. And then this portion of the messenger bag is complete. Of course, I'm going to show you how to do the flowers, but that's up to you and optional. All right, let's get this sewn. I've increased my stitch length to a 4, and I'm just going to sew down, following the original line we've just sewn as the top stitch. And once more. And on this one, I'll just backstitch. And that really secures in my strap. And there you go. Okay, look at this great fold over messenger bag. It can be done just as is, but of course, I'm gonna do my flowers now. So what you'll do is you'll get your cutout circles, and I'll show you how to make one flower, and then you'll do the same exact thing for the other 2, or however many else you want to add. So you're going to need to have a double threaded needle with, at the end, a double knot. And what you're going to do is you're going to take one of your circle cutouts, you're going to fold it in half, and you're going to baste large stitches, so basting is large stitches, all around the edge. Okay, keeping the edges together. You don't even have to pin because it's quick, it's easy, and there's no need to. So you're going to keep doing these large basting stitches all the way to the end. When you get to the end, you're going to scrunch this petal all the way to your knot. And this is what I mean. This is one petal. You're going to scrunch it down to the knot. Now, if you're going to be using a thicker fabric, thicker like a canvas or not a polyester, but like an upholstery, you'll notice that if you pull, when you start adding all your petals and you pull, your regular thread may break. So if you do have a thicker fabric that you're making your flowers out of, I would use a button thread or just a heavier duty thread. So just keep that in mind. So you're going to do the same thing and until you get all of your 5 petals on. Something I wanted to mention, we're making sort of a daisy, right? Your petals are rounded. But if you took your round circles and you folded them twice and then you just sewed this area, you will actually get a flower with pointed petals. So you could do that as well, whatever you love. Okay, I lost my little train here. Okay, here we go. Okay, there's my 5th petal, and I'm pulling and I can get away without the thread breaking because it is a thin fabric. And I'm going to put a stitch into that first petal that I made, and it brings these together. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna assume that this is the back. You can just look and see which side you like better. And I'm going to put another stitch here and do a nice little knot. I don't just leave it at that. I do actually go around a few times, and I'll show you what I mean. I make my way around all the petals, just picking up the edges, just to give it a tighter hold. If you're using an upholstery, like I mentioned before, you may notice you may need a thimble on your thumb because pushing that needle through may be a little challenging. So once I make my way around, I'm going to end this off here or do a finishing knot, just a simple knot, pull, put the needle through the loop. I'm going to repeat that. So this is going to be the back. No one's going to see that. And now for the front, I'm going to leave this needle in because I'm going to find a button or something very interesting to actually place in the center of this flower. I found this button to keep with my natural and sort of earth tones. I have all kinds of buttons, and you know, the decisions are the hardest part to make, but I'm just going to go with this larger button here. It's like a tortoise type, and I'm going to sew that on. Make sure it's secure. Runaway button there. And continue along. Now, if you don't want it to look like this is a button, you can also sew a smaller button on top. And I'll show you what I mean in a moment. I don't mind the look of a button, so I just may leave mine. So I will sew it on a few times. And then I will actually, before cutting this off, I'm going to attach it to the bag. I know where I'm placing mine, so you may want to wait to attach yours to the bag. But since my thread is already here, I know where I'm placing it, so I'm going to do mine now. All right, so my bag folds over like this. So now you're giving it a wrong and right side, because before it didn't have a wrong or right side. And I know I'm going to place mine right here, but again, you may want to wait with yours, okay? You may want to have all 3 or 2 or however many you're doing and wait. I'm going to turn it this way so when it flaps down, the petal doesn't get in the way. So I'm going to open up so I can get my hand in there. And now I'm going to attach this flower. And it is okay if you go all the way through both layers, both the interior and exterior. But remember, stay on only this side. Don't go through to the back. So this is a really simple process. I marked here. This is where it's going to land. I'm going to make 1 stitch in here first. And I'm going to repeat this a few times until it's nice and sturdy. And with my hand inside, I know I'm not grabbing the back of the bag. If you know your bag is really going to get some hard use out of it, you know, you can consider really doing a lot more of these stitches. So here's what I'm doing. I'm going in through the bag and in through the flower until I work my way around the flower. All right, meaning, here we go. And this is what I'm going to do until I reach the end or the opposite side of the flower. It is kind of like a little challenging getting your needle through here. It's also good to put your thread through the loop to lock it in place. All right, so I'm going to continue this until my flower is sturdy and not moving. And I may have to rethread my needle. with the same process, I will continue making my other 2 flowers. As you can see, my messenger bag is complete. I've created my other 2 flowers and sewn them into place, and there you have it, your fold over messenger bag. And remember, these are optional. You can continue adding more. Like I had these other great buttons that really coordinated well. I mean, I can just go ahead and continue sewing a few more of these on. It's totally up to you. You're the designer. Make it look gorgeous. And I hope you enjoyed this one.